Welcome to the Agents of Fandom podcast, and happy Star Wars Day to everyone. May the 4th be with you. I'm your host, TJ Zwarich, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Garrett Blaney. Garrett, how are you doing on this fabulous Star Wars Day?
I'm jazzed. It's a super busy day for me, but I'm ready. I'm ready to get through it. The Force is with me, and I'm going to see Doctor Strange tonight, so I can't really complain.
Hell yes. And on top of the exciting Doctor Strange stuff we got going on, it was, of course, the Moon Knight finale. We got a new Obi-Wan trailer. I got my Obi-Wan Funko right here. And, Obi-Wan the dog hasn't made an appearance yet. He's not hanging out. Sonic's the only one in here, but, he's going to get here at some point. We have a very special guest today. We are joined with our friend from thedirect.com, Matt Remke.
Hey, boys, how we doing? Happy May 4th to everybody out there.
Doing well. Happy to have you back. It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. I don't remember what we talked about last time I was here. We
like Venom or something.
Oh no,
it's been like really long.
No, there's no way we would have put Matt through Venom. It was something around that time, though. It was something around that time.
No, but I'm glad to be back. Glad to be talking Moon Knight. Is this weirdly the busiest day in fandom news ever? Like Moon Knight finale, May 4th, a new Obi-Wan trailer. Doctor Strange comes out tomorrow. Avengers 10 years ago today. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I woke up this morning and I had at 10 a.m. my time, I had a live stream for the other company I work for Roto Grinders. We're talking fantasy baseball, and I have to break down the slate and go through it. And it's like, I love this job, but man, do I just not want to be talking about sports right now.
I'm in the same boat. I'm in the exact same boat, my friend.
And
yeah,
so
it's been a tough day to get through for me.
Exactly. Yeah, you got work to go through too. And you're squeezing the pod in between two meetings and then headed to LA for the screener of Doctor Strange. So it's a busy day, but it's an exciting day. So let's get into it. Quickly, we're going to talk about the Obi-Wan trailer. We're not going to do a full breakdown because this Moon Knight episode was just so bonkers and we got to get into that. But this was a very exciting trailer. It followed the trend of the teaser of not showing us a ton, but showing us enough to get us very excited. Matt, what did you think about that trailer?
I thought it was a really awesome way to ramp up excitement for the show while being very aware that the show's title is Obi-Wan Kenobi. People are going to watch it. You know what I mean? Like they did a good job just reestablishing the vibe of the show, for people like us who are in it and, just like a part of the community, which is a great community. Shout out everyone listening to this podcast, by the way. We're going back to Tatooine, guys. Whoa. Like that could annoy you if you think about it too much. But once you realize that this is just Obi-Wan, like it's a really good time. And I'm excited for what they showed. I'm excited for what they didn't show. Forgot Kumail Nanjiani was in this, and I'm really hyped for that.
I did too, and I saw that, and I went, yes!
Yeah, the boy's back. The boy's back. I'm excited to see how ripped he is.
Yeah, I feel you completely on that one. And takeaways that I had from this trailer was one, Luke's father, his foster father, of course, not his actual father, is talking to Obi-Wan and he's saying, why would I let you train him when training your father didn't go so well? Then, of course, we got a much better look at the Inquisitors, and that was getting a lot of backlash, how they looked in the teaser trailers. And I thought they looked a lot better in this trailer than they did in the teaser. And so that got me excited. And finally, it was the ending. This guy right here, we get Vader being assembled together. Matt, you brought up worrying about just the potential continuity of Vader and Obi-Wan from the original Star Wars trilogy. But it is still pretty darn cool to get to see him getting put together. And then that last frame of Obi-Wan basically looking like he's seen a ghost. Mm-hmm. Garrett, what did you think of this trailer? And I want to get Matt's points about what he brought up of the continuity aspect after that.
Yeah, I think Matt touched on a lot of incredible things about the trailer. So instead of focusing on that, I want to focus on the poster that they dropped. Sick. Was that not one of the best posters? Sick. Like, I love that poster with the cliff line and that's in his robe, and that's just an incredible piece of art. And I want to shout that out. So A+ marketing game for this. Also, a cool thing that our friend Optical Cinema Elijah Boxhill pointed out was that they did like a cool little marketing tweet thing where if you liked this tweet, they like sent you a private tweet that added you. Well, it's not private. You can like send it to other people, but it doesn't show up on their feed, and it shows like the different lightsabers that are involved in the series. And each time you like it, they'll give you a new one. So I thought that was a really cool marketing technique, and like you said, it was an interesting marketing process for the show because, like you said, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to watch it. The people who are invested are going to watch it. And I think that they did a really good job of tackling it, minus the fact that when we started this podcast all the way back in like October, one of our first days recording, we were waiting for, it was the Disney Plus day, and we were waiting for like them to drop the Obi-Wan trailer because that's what everyone was expecting. And then we never ended up getting a trailer until like March. So besides that, I think the marketing has been exceptional on this, and I can't wait to see the final product.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that one. And to celebrate May the 4th, Ruben created just the sweetest graphic ever that we posted on our Twitter today. It was my idea of the new Jedi Order and the mindset of, we all saw the Last Jedi, and we know Ahsoka is not a fan of the Jedi Order, and Ezra's on his own journey somewhere after Rebels, as well as Cal Kestis has been on his own path where he differs in a lot of ways from the original Jedi from the Fallen Order game. So the new Jedi Order for people trying to do things differently, all on the right side of the Force. And that was a pretty sweet graphic that Ruben fired together. So check out Agents of Fandom socials for that one, at Agent Fandom on Twitter, Agents of Fandom anywhere else. This is also the very last week that you can get in for our giveaway, our Uber Monsters book from Anthony Francisco, former Marvel Studios concept artist. He has all of his Marvel Studios concept art in there, as well as his signature and a hand-drawn Baby Groot. This is the man that created Baby Groot himself. James Gunn's idea, but it was Anthony Francisco's pen that put him to the paper. So we have all of that, and it's signed by him. So all you have to do is head over to Apple Music, rate 5 stars, write us a nice little review, and you will be entered to win. Now, it's time. It's time to talk Moon Knight. Okay, Garrett and I have already saw. We're bonkers out of this. We are absolutely in love. I rated it 9.5 out of 10, this finale. Matt, I want to know what you thought.
Okay. I was pretty underwhelmed by this one. Not gonna lie to you. I think that this finale is what everybody narrates about all the Disney Plus MCU finales, that I don't subscribe to the fact that they have a finale problem. I think all the finales so far have done a really good job wrapping things up. This one specifically, I think that it just, I'm so high on last week's episode 5. I'm blown away by how much that episode got me back in on this show. I think that this episode at its best plateaued off that momentum, and at its worst kind of stalled it a little bit. So I'm definitely not as high as you guys, but that's not to say that there's not some amazing elements to this episode specifically that make me not hate it. There's nothing about this I hated. There's nothing about this that I didn't even like. There is nothing special about this to me, though, and that's where I just kind of get left with a meh feeling. But the action, I thought, is something that the show desperately needed. I think that are we full spoilers here?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Layla's suit reveal was insanely awesome.
Yes.
Like that's what Wonder Woman 84 wanted to be. And I think that there's just so many different elements of this episode that I had a lot of fun with, but there was nothing plot or story wise that I found special. Therefore, I just kind of left with a kind of a sour feeling. Last scene of the episode, though, great. Post-credit scene, better than most. Therefore, I'm left in a good spot. More than anything, this is another example of Marvel Studios putting a new player on the team that they can use in so many different ways. And I'm just really excited to have this piece on the board and see where they move with it next.
Big time. I agree with you there. And Garrett, what were your overall thoughts on the episode, and did it wrap up the series in the way that you wanted it to?
I enjoyed the episode a lot. See, we didn't really get to talk about this as much this morning as we wanted to, because you had some things that you had to do. And then by the time you were done, I was doing things. I liked it a lot, but there was a few shortcomings to me. Narratively, there was some stuff that I would have liked to have either known more or wrapped up a little bit better. But I didn't have as many issues with it as Matt. I really strongly enjoyed it. I agree with you, Matt.
It. Matt thought it was one.
Matt absolutely did not hate it. Matt, I thought Matt gave a very unbiased. I really liked that review. But yeah, you bring up a good point in that episode 5 was, and we talked about this on Twitter very briefly last week, in my opinion, the best episode of Disney Plus yet. It's so, I know it's a weighty statement, but it's for me, it's number one, and it's going to be hard to top. And it does feel like it falls short of that a little bit because they set the bar so high. That doesn't bring this episode down for me very much. I overall enjoyed it greatly, and it's my number one series. So,
and so interestingly enough, I did have one small issue with the episode, and that's why I said 9.5 out of 10, because it was something right at the beginning too. So it's a good time to get into it. Sure. Maybe I'm a little bitter because I had a pretty strong theory about the balancing of the scales in episode 5, and I was wrong. So maybe that's why I'm a bit bitter of it. But to me, what I really liked about the portrayal of dissociative identity disorder throughout the series was it wasn't a clinical perspective. It was very firsthand. It was Mark and Steven figuring out what was going on, what these symptoms were. Steven didn't even know about it. He thought he just had sleepwalking problems. And so I very much liked how it was like a firsthand experience of trying to figure out what he was going through. And so this does still lend itself to that a little bit because most of this was in the afterlife and in Mark and Steven's head. But to me, after episode 5, that scale didn't balance because Steven died. Steven went into fell off the boat. To me, those scales balanced because Steven accepted that him and Mark are one person. Mark filled him in on everything. Steven and Mark just came to terms that they are one. They are part of the same being. And that was what balanced the scales, because it wouldn't make sense to me that they had different souls anyways, one soul in the same person, but just different parts of a fractured mind. But then we kind of see as they got together there, well, then, yeah, I guess maybe there was more of a soul aspect involved there. But to me, that wasn't explained very well, like what was going on there. It was very much just like, oh, hey, thanks, Osiris, for opening the gates there. That was very nice of you, by Towerette. And man, shout out Towerette. Towerette. I love her so much. She was just absolutely amazing. But yeah, that scene, that opening left me wanting more. I thought more could have been explained there.
If I could just jump off that real quick. I think you theorizing the way you just did right there on how that all played out is better explained than it is in the show. And obviously, we can all play Monday morning quarterback all day and say, well, this is how I would have done it. But I just think that maybe this is a rare situation with Marvel Studios. Tiny mini spoiler from Multiverse Madness, I guess, is where, people had runtime issues going in, and the runtime issues were a little apparent to me here. I feel like it could have used a little more here, and that's a rare thing for Marvel Studios project. My pitch playing Monday morning quarterback with this episode specifically, everything that we got in this with the Field of Reeds, Mark deciding, nah, I'm not cool with this. I'm not cool with leaving him behind and me getting to be here. So I'm going to go back and get him. I think all of that, including him going through the doors, that could have been at the end of last week's episode and we wouldn't have lost any impact. I feel like if you condense that just a tad and throw that on the end of last week and then have the last shot be him opening his eyes in Alexander the Great's tomb, I think that could have kept the emotional element that last week thrived on and allowed us to have a little bit more time here to flesh out the supplemental parts. And, I'm sure we'll talk about the series as a whole, but for me, the best thing this series does, and it's one of my favorite elements of an MCU Disney series so far, is just how they executed the two personalities thing. Obviously, the explanation of it ended up being such a beautiful, tragic thing, but just the execution of it throughout the whole series, I thought when they chose to bring who to the front and back and all those different things, it kept me on a string the entire time, right? So being able to capture that is great. And that's the best part of the show for me. It's the supplemental aspects of it that I didn't fall in love with at any point. I feel like those elements could have used an extra 10 minutes here just to have a little more depth to it. And so I just think that the scene you were talking about specifically could have been better used at the end of last week to give this week a little more time to just breathe.
I like that a lot.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Something from that scene though, that like it almost, when I was watching it, like all of these things that we're talking about now didn't come to my mind until I was thinking about it later, because in that scene, all I could think about was Mark telling Steven that he is the only real superpower he's ever had. I was like,
just crying.
Yeah, I was like, it's too early in the morning for like this much emotion. Like it was so hard to like focus on any of those aspects in that moment, because I was so overwhelmed by how he delivered that line. And really enough cannot be said about Oscar Isaac's performance throughout this entire series. Like it's generational.
Yeah.
I mean, I can absolutely be accused of speaking in hyperbole too often and just ranking things really high right after I see them. I do that all the time. But to me, this is a top 3 and not 3, maybe even not 2 acting performance in the MCU so far. Like when I was listening to Phase Zero earlier this morning, and Jamie Jirak brought up how she thought that other than she's a big Elizabeth Olsen gal, and other than her performance in WandaVision, this was number 1 for her. And I can't say I disagree that heavily. Like it was just some top tier talent in the MCU, and just in terms of an acting performance. And I sure as hell hope he gets an Emmy, because it was just absolutely incredible.
Couldn't agree more. I'm a big Lizzie guy myself. For anyone who follows me at all, they know that. And she crushes the Multiverse of Madness as well. So like she's, continuing her dominance in the MCU. Oscar Isaac doing what he did in this series was phenomenal. And in all accounts, it's the reason I like the series as much as I do. And I'm so curious, if this was any other actor, how would we all feel about this series? Because so much of this show relies on Oscar Isaac capturing us through his acting and through what he's able to do just with his face, like so much of this show relies on Oscar Isaac being amazing. And that's nothing against the show. You can't blame the show for embracing the actor that it has. It's just, I think that overall for me, the show is really good. I think it's really good because of Oscar Isaac. If the supplemental elements were maybe a little more heightened, I think that it could have been great. It's also the first instance in the Disney Plus era of the MCU where I kind of wish it was a movie. I think that this would have played really well as a movie when I talk about things like action and just kind of the twists and turns that were involved. Do we lose episode 5 within a movie? Maybe. I don't know. You can maybe condense some of those flashback scenes a little bit to still get the same effect. But so I don't know if I would sacrifice that. But other than that, Oscar Isaac not only carried this show for me, he's the reason it's as much as I like it. And it's just a testament to how good this guy is. And I can't wait to see him in different roles. Put him in any situation. I'm going to be excited about it.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And something else I agree with you, Matt, is you brought up how I also am not on the same page that MCU series have a finale problem. Obviously, Loki's usually not included in that conversation, but I think to me, this and Loki are on the top tier of finales for me personally. But I think the Falcon and the Winter Soldier one is underrated. Yes, there were some things with Sharon that did not get tied up and didn't make a lot of sense, but to me, the storyline with the Flag Smashers was actually tied up perfectly, because they accomplished their goal and they reached someone. They reached Sam, and then Sam reached out to all of America on their behalf. And obviously they didn't go about things the right way, but even though their leader, spoilers for that, died in the process, she got what she was hoping for out of it. And so I really like how that was tied up. I liked the WandaVision finale. So I agree with you there. I don't think there's a finale problem. Where there is a trend in this new phase of Marvel, and I do think that this show hit it, is we look at Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, amazing performance. but wow, did Florence Pugh steal the show as Yelena Belova. Shang-Chi, Simu Liu crushed it. But Zhu Ziling, Menger Zen just absolutely crushed it. And we want to see more. And we're getting a spinoff now on Disney Plus. Hawkeye, Quint did great. Jeremy Renner, great job. It was a really good show. But Haley Steinfeld is who we want to see more of.
Rookie of the Year.
Oscar Isaac gave a Emmy deserving performance. And I'm excited to see him in the MCU. But damn, do I want a May Kalamaui as Layla, the Scarlet Scarab, Avatar of Tawaret. Man, do I want that spinoff series on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think that she necessarily stole the show away from Oscar as much as your other examples did. I think they both shined they were both allowed to shine incredibly bright in this show. Whereas, in the other things, it was the other shows you mentioned, it's kind of like we're like this baby and we're like attracted to the shiny thing, the new shiny thing. Like, because, we've seen Hawkeye, we've seen Black Widow, we've followed these characters for years and years and years now. We love them. Not that we're sick of them, but now that we're getting something new, we love that also. And we're attracted to that. And that's okay. And I don't think that this show did that as much because Oscar Isaac did so well. I think to Matt, your point, if any other actor played that part, I don't think it sells as well. Yeah. And I think May is elevated that much higher in her role. And I think that we would all be talking about her so much more had she not been overshadowed by his, just like I said, generational performance.
Yeah. And the thing with me and May Cowboy here, one, own that hair, Queen. Just own it, man. Just off the chain when she gets that suit on. Just rocking that fro. I love that.
That suit reveal.
Sick. Better than Wonder Woman 1984 tenfold.
I think that is and so obviously I have not seen Doctor Strange at the Multiverse of Madness yet, but I think that is my third favorite suit reveal of this phase so far. Number one,
Sam.
Number one is Spider-Man.
Number one is the blue, like the new one at the very end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The winner.
Number two is Wanda.
Sure.
Number three is this one for me. And I think Sam's number four.
I respect that. Because
that's a great list.
Yeah.
She just worked it. And like that was such a great point with like the new shiny thing, Garrett. And I think that's such a great thing to work with it. Cause like both Hawkeye, Black Widow, it was a legacy for one character and a introduction for another. Whereas this one, I think the reason it really took me off guard. And so the Scarlet Scarab, this is a character from Marvel Comics. And this is something we theorized about in our last episode. This is a theory that I brought up, was that Layla El Fuli, that name was so similar to the name of the Scarlet Scarab from comics. And so her dad was wearing, when we got that flashback, he was wearing a scarlet scarab, as well as he used to call Layla his little scarab. And so it really seemed like that they were foreshadowing of Scarlet Scarab, the protector of Egypt. That's their role. Maybe that we could be getting some foreshadowing to that, something there. And then she just takes on the Avatar and we get it so fast. Like I thought this was a years down the road maybe thing. We just get it now. And so I think it's really interesting as well that we got a Bushman reference last episode in episode 5. And that is typically a Moon Knight villain, but he brought up how that's the person who killed Layla's father. That's the person who's been going through Egypt looking for all of these things and not respecting history in the way. So I really feel like a Disney Plus series where we get May Kalamaui as the Scarlet Spider, the Scarlet Scarab protecting Egypt with Bushman as the main villain. That kind of seems like that could be coming in the future.
Scarlet Spider, a great suit to unlock on Spider-Man PS4. The thing about me and Layla is
Spider-Man suit.
Yeah, it's a good one. The thing about me and Layla is when she was first introduced, and I'm not sure it's definitely not the performance fault. The writing was, just fine. I didn't love her as a character when she first came in because she was simultaneously having a relationship with Mark and Steven and being kind of love it. That's Ben Reilly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She was kind of being negative and sympathetic at the same time. I straight up just did not like the Layla character at first. Then we had the Indiana Jones episode, which was a lot of fun because May Calamawy got to flex in that one. And then she started to grow on me. And then we didn't see her for an episode and a half. So I was worried that, Layla was just going to end up falling flat for me, but she shined here. And I think that's really cool. I didn't love her back and forth with Tawedit within herself. They tried to do the Oscar Isaac thing very quickly, and I didn't love that. But her conversation with Khonshu, I thought was amazing.
I didn't like it when they did it with Oscar Isaac either.
What do you mean?
The Oscar Isaac, Khonshu screaming through Oscar Isaac.
Oh, that was bad.
I didn't like that bit either. So when they doubled down on it, I agree. I wasn't a fan.
Yeah. Yeah, but her conversation with Khonshu when she was adamantly against anything he was saying, I loved that. And that really brought her around. And then she was just a badass. So, she really took a huge step forward for me. It's just unfortunate for me, and I don't want to be the Debbie Downer here, but she's the only supplemental aspect of this show outside of Oscar Isaac, obviously, that got better and better for me. Whereas Arthur Harrow, I liked less as the show went on. The whole mystery of Amit and, just what her whole plan was and how they're executing that, I liked less as the show went on. And then the saving grace I thought for this show was going to be the action. We just didn't get a lot of it in recent episodes. And here we got some really awesome action sequences, specifically with the two different Moon Knights going off, Moon Knight and Mr. Knight, just doing their thing back and forth. So it's, for me, the show's going to rank lower than the character of Mark, Steven, Moon Knight, Mr. Knight will, because I think that this show fleshes out a new character as well as any project the MCU has brought in since Guardians. And I think that that's a really awesome thing they were able to accomplish. I do wish the show around that concept was better, but at the end of the day, this feels a lot like Eternals for me, where I'm not super high on the project, but I cannot wait to see these guys back on the field again because they are big playmakers. And when they get a full head of steam, they can make anything happen at any time. And I'm really excited that the MCU is collecting this roster as we move forward.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that was an incredible way to state that.
Thank you.
And yeah, I have nothing but respect for that. And
this is the internet, guys. We don't have to agree on everything.
Exactly. And we don't have to hate each other for it either.
Nope, I didn't love it, so I hate it.
Exactly.
It's wild when people can have conversation with nuance and go, oh, I understand how your perspective would lead you to that conclusion. Here's why my perspective led me to mine.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But I do, to your point, I do think another one of my favorite lines in this episode, I already mentioned the first one, but the second one happens with Layla and while she's in her costume and during that fight scene, there is an Egyptian lady that turns to her and in the middle of the fight and goes hey, yes, are you an Egyptian superhero? And her confidence and her swagger when she says I am so awesome. Yeah. And I know that I was freaking out on my couch this morning when I heard that. I literally got goosebumps. Mm-hmm. For me, as a white dude who this means literally jack shit to, I'm getting goosebumps in this moment. So I can't even imagine how some people who this means everything to them. This is the first time that they're seeing their skin represented as a superhero. I can't imagine what that line did to them. I think that was incredibly powerful. I'm so happy that they were able to put that in there. And I hope that this inspires another generation of talented filmmakers.
I think that moment right there is a great example of how action can really supplement a show like this. Because if that was just her walking out of the tomb, oh my God, are you an Egyptian superhero? Yes, it's on the nose as hell. I mean, in writing, the scene as it is on the nose. But because she comes out and saves those people from that bus and just wrecks shop throughout that street, we see her be a superhero for a second, and then that line comes. I think that is such a great supporting aspect to that line because it brings so much energy behind it. There's a kinetic energy in that sequence in this episode. I don't want to say the whole episode because it's not just one big action scene like WandaVision was. But I think that the kinetic energy leading up to that moment allowed it to be hype as hell. And I think that's where On the Nose pays off when you surround it with amazing aesthetic and just really good kinetic movement throughout a scene.
100% agree. It was on the nose, but it could be because of the work.
In a good way.
Yes, exactly. It worked.
Yeah. And shout out to that execution to director Mohammed Diab, who our friend Mo, former guest of the Pod's editor-in-chief of Streamer News, he's going to be interviewing him, director Mohammed Diab, on May 12th. Nice. So make sure you tune in for that, because that is very cool as well.
And they're answering questions from a lot of fans too. So I believe there's a hashtag that you can use to have your question submitted to be asked, and I think that's a really cool way of doing things. So I'm excited to see the results of that interview, and I know it's going to be great.
A little bit of shameless plug here. Next week on the Direct Podcast, our boy Russ Milheim will have an interview with Jeremy Slater, head writer of the show, and nice. I know he's going to be all over Layla questions, which is really cool.
Yes, awesome. Absolutely plug that, bro. I've been happy to tap into that too.
Got you.
Russ gets himself into these things with a good interview. I had my first ever media roundtable early in the year with Chikuti Awuji, and that's where I met Russ for the first time, because he was doing that one too.
One of the best goatees in the game, Russ Milheim.
Shout out to the Direct. I was supposed to meet up with Rich tonight before the show, but our schedules turned out it's not going to align. So we're going to try to plan something for Thor: Love and Thunder. But I was really trying to meet up with Rich in real life. Yeah, I was trying to get a pic with the machine to show everyone.
Yeah, he's part of the giant squad over there at the Direct. There's like 5 or 6 of our main writers are over 6'3". It's wild.
Oh yeah, he was about to dwarf me. So maybe it's
led by Liam, who's 6'11",
7 feet tall.
Yeah. I just saw that picture with Elijah on our Twitter this week, and Elijah's like my height.
Yeah,
Elijah's 5'10". Yeah, and he looks 5'3" in that.
He looks like a 12-year-old boy next to Liam.
Well, Liam looks like a 12-year-old boy too, but a 6'6".
Yeah.
Liam has been rocking the hell out of his hair lately.
Yes, he has.
Loving the confidence.
Yes, he has. Absolutely.
Can't wait for us to just clip this part of the podcast of just us both making fun of and complimenting Liam and Elijah.
That's the last thing we need to do.
Anyways, we were talking Moon Knight, so let's get back to that.
Something you brought up earlier, Matt, that I really enjoyed was, the best action the Layla stuff, the action was amazing. So cool. But the very best sequence was the transitioning between Mr. Knight and Moon Knight. And I do have a little rant, because when we first got the introduction of Mr. Knight, the internet was going wild of, that's not what he was in the comics. I don't like this Stephen Grant version. Unless your name is Jim Viscardi, Adam Barnhart, Damon Gray, who we had on last week in our first Agents of Fandom Comic Quarter, you can't tell me that you knew all about Mr. Knight from comics before this show. Maybe you did a deep dive going into the show, but you didn't have a childhood emotional attachment to this character. This is an origin. This is the very first time we were seeing him. This was the very first time he got it. So no, he wasn't the suave detective that he was in the comics. But we see the character development of Mr. Knight through Stephen Grant, because the character development of Stephen was just amazing from start to finish in this series. You get your Mr. Knight now. Chill. Be patient, everybody. You don't have to get everything at top tier in the first episode. It took them 3 entire movies for Spider-Man to figure out how to be his personal ultimate Spider-Man. And so, they're going to take their time with some of these stuff. Give it to them. They do it well. Relax.
And shout out to their character development too, because 100%. I've never been so attached to such a pathetic character.
Exactly. It's
I love Steven so much. I root for him all the time, but he is pathetic.
Stephen Grant is the perfect example of the antithesis to, Marvel just forces jokes into every single scene. No, they have characters who are organically charismatic, and when they say things, it's funny. And Stephen Grant's the perfect example of that. And then TJ, you just talked about the detective aspect of everything. Watching Stephen Grant be a detective is so you don't even notice it. You don't even notice he's doing it, because he's bumbling through it and he's pretty wicked, and all those different things. And and it really just does a great job embedding you with these characters. And, I've said it 2 or 3 times now. I'll say it again. the fact that we're able to have two so established characters in Mark and Steven in this show is such an amazing outcome. You know, despite how underwhelm's not the right word. It's not as good as I think it could have been for me personally. But the fact that we're getting out Mark and Steven out of it is just such an amazing achievement. And I can't wait to see it moving forward. You got to remember, guys, this is the first time in MCU history a character is introduced on a streaming series. I think they are working out the kinks a little bit because Arthur Harrow fell to the wayside. Layla took a little while to get going. The supporting elements of the show kind of fall to the back because we focus so much on the main character, which is fine. But I think that we are still working out the kinks of the MCU series origin a little bit. The fact that we are all, like, I think universally in love with Mark and Steven out of this is a win. And it's only going to get better from here. And that's my biggest takeaway is that there's a wide range of emotions on this finale, I think. You know, you either loved it or hated it a little bit, and there's plenty of in between. But I think that, you know, there's a lot of polarization with this finale. At the end of the day, they produced an amazing character that's now on the board for us to love moving forward. And it's only going to get better from here. They learned from their mistakes. You know, Thor's eyebrows were dyed, and we got that figured out by the time Avengers 2012 came out. And that's just an example of they learned from their mistakes. So we're only going to get better quality shows as far as the supplemental characters. Are we going to get a better character development and a better character introduction than Mark and Steven? Good luck, because I love both of these guys for completely different reasons. And it's really awesome. And I just can't wait to see more of it.
And then again, shout out to Oscar Isaac, because a lot of that is the writing, of course, but like not nearly could anyone, I think, capture it as much as he does. Like you said, it's the subtle things, like his facial expressions and his eyebrows, gestures, there's a lot of things that he's able to do to where like anyone could watch this show and then easily pick up that these are like two different people, though they look the same. And I think that that's just an incredible feat that he was able to pull off.
I agree.
And I mean, we keep saying these two different established people that Oscar Isaac has been able to pull off, but they were hinting at it the whole time. And I'm very happy it was shown in a post-credit scene. And I think it was done perfectly, but we have our Jake Lockley, and shout out our guy, Task. He was saying, making fun of this on his show, the Super Suit show that they do every Saturday. But he was laughing because no one knew who Jake Lockley was a couple months ago, let alone years ago. And there was, he's been trending on Twitter, people talking about him. The tweet he was making fun of that made me laugh so much was people calling it, "Are we finally going to get the iconic Jake Lockley?" There's nothing iconic about Jake Lockley. This was a side character no one knew about until we all got really hyped for this show and Oscar Isaac. But Oscar's going to make him iconic because we got the taste of the third personality and it looked cool. I appreciate that Oscar's getting to show off a little bit of his Latino heritage as well, with that accent that he got going.
TJ, we lost you there for a sec.
Oh, is I gone?
Yeah, you cut out and froze.
He's gone. Ooh,
oh, I thought he was back again, and then he froze again. I
didn't know how to take it. He's gone. Ooh,
I say we keep this in.
I take the devil to places. She's gone. Ooh,
yes, I love that.
Hall & Oates, start your day.
Oh my God, that was woo! I'm ready to go.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
You guys see me and hear me now?
Yeah,
can hear you.
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay, I'm confused. I was weird. My connection says it's good.
You were going on
PTSD. I have PTSD from the internet problems I had when we were beginning this podcast. But I was just gushing over how much I loved this new Jake character we're getting. He's driving a limo instead of a cab. Sick. We got Khonshu in the seat. Sick. And I feel like one of the other theories I had that seems to be making some sense to me is Jake is the persona that when there's something Mark and Steven aren't comfortable with, but at their darkest corners of their heart, their brain feels like they need to be have done, that's where Jake steps in. And it's another interesting thing that I think was confusing from episode 5. Mark transitions to Steven, and we get to see the birth of Steven. And it's right before his mom just starts beating on him. But Steven doesn't remember that. So I'm almost wondering now, like, when I was watching this episode, when I saw that post-credit scene, what kind of clicked for me is I think that birth of Steven was also the birth of Jake at the exact same time. And that was Jake who was taking all that abuse, and that's why it was repressed. And because it's these dark corners for them, that's why they don't remember Jake at all. Obviously, he was the same one earlier when Mark is covered in blood and he goes, "Steven, was that you?" "No, that wasn't me." Then we got to see that happen again in this episode as Moon Knight. My only other one that I'm confused about is which one of the three, or was it who asked out the person who asked out that
Jake.
Lovely coworker in episode 1? Is that Jake? Because that's what I was thinking, and that's what I'm still kind of holding on. And was Jake asking people out at the museum?
Yeah, I think so. I think Jake's out there swinging and just, trying to have a good old time. He made I think he made a very small appearance last week when he was like, "Hey, Doc, you got a nice place here. Yeah. You got a really nice place here." And I love that. I love the Brooklyn accent into a Spanish speaking person is a little odd, but I think that the way I take that scene where we first meet Steven, which, by the way, tears, I think it's just such a beautiful moment. But the way I've always taken it is, I don't know who took the beating, whether it's Mark or Jake, but I've always seen that as just showing us we've created Steven so we can live a normal life without knowing that our mom hates us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's exemplified by the character of Steven. It's not just that he has a mom that doesn't hate him. He's a mama's boy. And we know that from day one, latest Gators. And I think that it's just such a great way to do it. I agree that there's a little ambiguity to the timing of it, like who took the beating. But I think that's a great theory there, that it was Jake. And that's why Jake is so hardened, because Mark ran away from the beating. He created Steven to live a life without any knowledge of his mom at all. And Jake's just the one taking the brunt of everything. I think that can be a really great narrative piece in the next season or the next whatever we see Moon Knight in. Let's look out for that announcement in the next few days, by the way. Wherever we see Moon Knight next, I think that is a great way to explain Jake. Like, why don't we know who Jake is? Because Jake's the one that takes everything that we can't, including our mom beating the hell out of us. And I think that's a really poetic way to harden Jake up and make him this assassin psycho guy that we love. And I think that's a really cool thing. The scales end up making no sense, right? That's a little tough. That's
so interesting with Harrow. So the last thing I want to mention, you know what? I'm going to go right into Harrow because I kind of forgot what I was going to say there. So I agree with you that the Amit mystery and the releasing of Amit, it was whelming. It wasn't underwhelming, but it was just, I was whelmed.
Well put.
But I did really still like Harrow's arc, and the two parts that I liked about it were he was a believer to the end. He was fully committed to his cause, and he went down with it, was willing to go down with his ship. His fighting stuff was meh, but that was also never really the best part of him. And then I loved the twist of, I still don't really know where that psych unit was, if that's where, but I don't need to, and I'm okay with that. But I just loved that it could kind of be now taken as that was Mark trying to figure out if Harrow remembers Amit the whole time. And it was all real because we see the feet bleeding and stuff like that. Like, I just thought that was all phenomenal writing of how they pieced that together and then swapped that scene on its head from what we got earlier with Harrow being the doctor. I thought that was absolutely fantastic.
I think the writing, to your earlier point, Matt, was focused on different things than enhancing the supplemental items that weren't enough for you. Like they really focused on embedding stuff in previous episodes that are like really subtle. Like we get a lot of callbacks to a lot of that stuff in the 5th episode. That's when it comes to be like important. But I think that they spent a lot of time focusing on honoring the Egyptian aspect.
Sure.
Completely. How do I say this correctly? They wanted to do justice to the dissociative identity disorder aspect. And they wanted to bake a lot of these things subtly into the narrative. And I feel like if these were their goals, they succeeded. And in succeeding in these, they let some other things fall to the wayside. Right. And I think that's a good way to bridge our opinions on this show. Is they focused on the right things for us, the wrong things for you, and knocked some out of the park and swung and missed on some.
Well, no, that was really well put. That was really well explained. And it's not even so much that they focused on the wrong things for me. I love the things they focused on. They're the reason that the show is going to rank higher than anything it's above for me. And, there's just a rankings conversation at this point, but it's more so about, Marvel Studios, there's a bar. The bar is high. And there are so many projects on Disney Plus and in theaters that hit all the notes, right? So when a show like Moon Knight that I personally feel misses a few notes, it does stand out a little bit. And that's why, it's going to rank a little, yeah, I don't know where it's going to rank for me. That's a conversation we're having next week on the Direct podcast. But I think that what we got here at the end, if you're going to have, for me, an underwhelming finale, end with a bang. Have the main event crack. And I think that two things did that for me. The post-credit scene with Jake Lockley, I think, is a great reveal, and it sets up season 2. What is it about a silencer on a gun that makes a guy just so cool?
Right. Right.
It's so sick. Just as a beep, like that sound is awesome. But also
it just makes me worried. Like it just makes me like, oh wow, this is a problem. This guy's a problem.
Like the gun wasn't a problem in the first place, but now that it has a silencer,
now that it's a quiet gun,
menacing.
It's a problem.
Menacing. But I think that the final shot with Harrow and the bleeding feet, I think it was an interesting decision to make Duat a psych ward and also have the Harrow's office be in the same psych ward, different psych ward. That just makes it a little hard to follow. But then they flash back to Mark and Steven waking up in his apartment, and we hear A Man Without Love.
Yeah.
And that is, it's going to end up being a top 10 needle drop for me in the MCU. It's one of my favorite things the MCU does is their needle drops. And this is going to be a top 10 for me, not just because the song slaps in a big way. I want to go to a bar and sing that with my friends with our arms wrapped around each other, spilling beer everywhere. But the song's great, but also they use it to signify we just woke up from a fever dream. And the way they brought it back here at the end, I think that's such a banger of a way to use it. And to add the post-credit scene, they ended on a high note, which is, that says something. And I think that that's the reason I don't have any issue with this episode. There's just something special about the episode, and ending on that high note is very big for me personally, as far as how I'm going to remember this show.
Yeah.
The psych ward stuff as well. Like that was a cool twist on a comic run where Mark Spector essentially had to figure out, is Moon Knight real? Is Khonshu real? And so I thought that was a cool twist that they had on that. The final note on Harrow and Amit, what I did like about Amit is I thought she looked pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
And then also I enjoyed, while I didn't really get too much out of the fight itself between Khonshu and Amit, I enjoyed, the Kaiju fight. It didn't do anything for me other than the symbolism of just kind of the overarching theme of the entire show. It was in the background and it wasn't the mainstay of the event. Right. The Kaiju fight was in the background, and because it was kind of symbolizing its choice versus
judgment.
Exactly. And so it's, I don't judge people until after they make the choice, and I judge evil people. It's what the entire show is themed around, and they kind of have it in the background fighting each other. And I thought that was pretty cool that it was almost out of focus while that was happening. The other thing that I thought of earlier that it's part of what you mentioned, Garrett, for one of your favorite lines of Steven, you were always my only superpower. And right. Matt, something you said reminded me of that. And I don't want to speak for everyone and everyone's mental health experiences. Like, I don't want to say this was done perfectly, here's why, but it really resonated with me in a big way. And the reason why, Garrett, that line was so great for me is mental illness is so often just viewed as disability first and foremost. And I almost get like a little bothered sometimes when you're constantly hit with questions like, oh, how's your mental health doing today? Like, how you doing today? Are you better now? Like, are you better now than before? And it's like, well, no, I'm not ever better. I'm not ever like, this is just me. Like, this is how I am. And what I liked about the mental illness as a superpower aspect is, yeah, there's days it's really hard, but as I'm diagnosed with PTSD, I'm also very empathetic. And it also helps me try and see things through others' eyes a lot of the time. And yeah, the ADHD is tough to deal with sometimes, but there's also days that I can just do everything. And I feel like a superhero because my brain's just doing everything I want it to do. And it's clicking on all cylinders. I'm multitasking, completing tasks. So yeah, it's some days that it's like, it was born through trauma and it is very difficult to deal with, but yeah, Steven, you were my superpower. Like that hit me, Garrett. That hit me in the same way. And I obviously don't want to speak for everyone because there's other people who might feel the total opposite that I do. But for me, I thought that was really awesome. And it really connected with that post-credit scene.
I did have one quick question about the Kaiju Fight. If you don't mind. You guys love this episode. I heard 9.5 earlier and I want you guys to help convince me a little bit here. Why the Kaiju Fight? Because aren't avatars supposed to fight for these gods? Wasn't kind of a big thing of episode 2 or episode 3? When did we have the lentil soup? Nope, that was racist. Lentil soup. When was that, episode 3?
Yeah, I think it was.
So wasn't kind of one of the big themes is like, hey, Khonshu can't hurt us. He can just make the wind blow. Like, wasn't that kind of the big idea of the avatars being the physical embodiment of these gods? Why the Kaiju Fight?
And so I think the reason why was it was more of the moral understanding of which one of them are right. And while they wouldn't necessarily be able to hurt the other ones, they could somewhat hurt each other. Sure. We could see as they were fighting each other, they've been going at this a while. Like, Amit didn't really want to fight Khonshu. Amit wanted Khonshu to join her.
Join him. Same goal.
And when we see in episode 3, the Ennead, all the gods meeting, and they're saying, we have these avatars. We don't need to be almost like belittling the humans of like, that's what they're for. We don't do that. We're above that. Mm-hmm. Amit and Khonshu were also 2 of the people that they were like, we're done with you. Like, we don't like how you do things. So like, they were very immature type gods that would kind of wrestle like little kids would. But then in the same sense, it shows the overarching theme of choice versus judgment before the choice. And yeah, thought that was pretty sweet.
I would also just like to add on top of that real quick that if I personally had been encased in stone for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, I would like to just stretch out a bit, get my full form a little bit.
Yeah. That's your crocodile walk.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. A question I had about the plot was when they do the big assault on the Great Pyramid, and then Layla takes, I think it's Horus. Is it Horus? His avatar? I don't know. But one of the avatars dies. Mm-hmm. Talking to her. Are the gods dead or just their avatars? Because I thought avatars. I thought they could save their avatars from death. Right? Isn't that the whole? Khonshu says like, I have saved you from so many deaths, and then he brings him back to life, and the bullets come out of him. So like,
I think that just kind of more so shows the ways that they go about their business. Like Khonshu says, you have all abandoned humanity. Like, they don't really give a crap if their avatar dies. You know what I mean? if they need another one, that was very good. If they need another one, they'll go back and get another one later. But we also didn't see all of the gods there. You know what I mean? Only some of them had avatars. So I kind of just feel like they don't really feel like they are that needed. And when they are, they'll use them. Maybe this was addressed. Maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure. Maybe I just missed it. But all of the people who, when he was going soul sucker from Shang-Chi mode, when Amit was, what happened to all those souls? Did they get put back after he was defeated, or did a bunch of people in Cairo just die?
See, I thought those were going to be the souls that were falling from the sky in duet. I thought that's what that was going to be.
Yeah, me too.
But like happening at the same time kind of thing.
But the timeline did not work out to that. The timeline ended up being, it had to have been like the police. The police people, right? That he took the souls. That those had to have been the souls that we saw in the Dua, right?
When Layla just put on the thing over her face, and she's just a part of the gang now.
Okay, I will agree. That was a little bit sus. Because if I was,
it was better than a hat and sunglasses.
If I was riding in the back of a Jeep, I'm like, those people knew each other. Like, let's be real. They knew.
You know what it was? You know what it was, guys? I could totally see your face. Not if I go like this.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Actually, who is this new guest that we have on the show now?
And she made it all the way into the tube too. Like I thought that was a little wild. But yeah. And so I have a question. Between the Jedi Order from the prequels, Happy May 4th, and these Egyptian gods brought in council, who's a worse ran organization? Because it starts hitting the fan and they're like, what's going on? And so he's like, someone's trying to release Hamid. Yeah.
The Jedi Council ran worse because they are frequently the tools to their own demise.
Yes.
Whereas they actually care and just suck. Whereas the gods don't care.
The gods are just indifferent. They're just indifferent to the situation.
Yeah, it was so funny how shocked the guy was that somebody was trying to release Hamid. And then he goes, oh, Harrow.
It must be Harrow. Yeah, maybe I should have done something about that earlier.
Where were you 3 episodes ago, brother?
Honestly, it's like from there. So like how I'm almost like thinking about this from their perspective. It's like, when I've senior men's basketball games on Sunday, when I'm there at that game, I really care and I want it. Like I'm invested, right? But if we take a tough L, I'm going to go home at the end of the day and I'm not going to think about it again for the rest of the week. That's what that was like for them. They're like, ooh, we're talking about Amit. Yeah, no, we don't want him to come back.
I didn't even care
who cares about Earth anyways? That sucks. But on to the next thing.
Monday, when your fantasy football team's 3-7. You're just like, yeah, well.
They're like, whatever. This is just
one. There's always next season.
Yeah. I'm in 6 leagues, man. I don't care. I don't care that I suck in one of them.
There were too many leagues. Forgot about this one.
The prize is only $100 on this one. I'm going to focus on the $600.
No, I think it's the opposite. This is their money league, and they somehow forgot about it.
Yeah, they're like, I didn't even set my lineup this week. I don't care.
It's funny.
Oh,
good show though.
Yeah,
Oscar Isaac kicked ass.
So with that post-credit scene, it confirmed we're going to get more of some kind. Disney posted that this was the series finale. They deleted it and they reposted that it was the season finale. Whether it's another Moon Knight season, whether it's Moon Knight and the Scarlet Scarab, or whether it's just a spinoff and we're seeing Moon Knight in a movie, who knows?
Great time.
Where do the two of you see him next? I want to start with you, Matt.
I think that Moon Knight, Mark Spector, Jake Lockley, maybe becomes the number one candidate for a Werewolf by Night post-credit scene. I think that is a way to not only bring the supernatural branch of the MCU together a little bit, but also just maybe clear up where we're at with Jake Lockley and Mark and Steven, because Mark and Steven are one now, and they did such a good job showing that in this episode. It's like they are so much working together. Even in the Man Without Love scene at the end, they were talking to each other in conversation, not like, one taking over the other. It was a fluid DID conversation that they were having. It seems weird to say, but it's true. And, but now that they have, what's cool about the Jake thing is that it feels like Khonshu is hiding inside Steven and Mark, and just in the shadows now, and like a lot like Mark was with Steven, in the shadows. Now it's a third layer in. So I think that it could be cool if we get an anti-hero vibe in a Werewolf by Night post-credit scene where Jake comes after the werewolf, or maybe the werewolf's an anti-hero, but I don't know what it is. I hope it's there because I would love some connection there. And I hope it's in an anti-hero element because Jake Lockley gives off that vibe, and that could be a really fun thing to play with.
Yeah.
Definitely. What do you think, Garrett?
So I think tossing it to me second on this is tough scene because it's hard to even imagine where he shows up besides Werewolf by Night.
Right.
So for shits and gigs, I'm just going to throw something out. We know he's a mercenary or has been in the past. And we've seen Sharon Carter recently doing some sketchy things. So, and Madripoor is like basically one of the only references to the larger MCU from this show.
Great call.
So maybe we see him doing some sketchy things for Sharon Carter in the future. And that's something I just made up right now off the top of my head because I honestly have no idea where he's going to show up if it's not Werewolf by Night.
It's the most ambiguous send-off that Disney Plus has given us so far.
100%.
It really is. And it's fun to speculate because I think there are kind of three different schools of thought that you could lead into with this. And it's what's coming up right ahead of us here. The next movie, Thor, Love and Thunder, Gore the God Butcher, Khonshu was a god. I don't think that's the most likely place to see him next, but it's an option just based on that logic itself. The next one, and I think this is, I agree, the most likely outcome is the Midnight Suns type setup, premiering him next in Werewolf by Night. He is damn close to Dane Whitman right now. They're in the same city. And obviously in the
they
Eternals
work at the same building.
I thought that was a different museum. That was, when we had Layla on, who's in the UK, she confirmed those were two separate museums in London.
Well, still, they work at museums in London, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah, come on.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's gonna be a small circle there.
That right there. It's like, come on, these guys are all getting together. And then the third one would be the Sharon Carter Madripoor, the Val kind of setup of, it'd be interesting if Moon Knight was in two different teams with two different personalities, not kind of like, that would be pretty wild. That would be very interesting. He could Midnight Suns and Thunderbolts at the same time.
Love it. Love it.
Tell us where you think he is going to appear next at Agents Fandom on Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. If you're watching this on YouTube, help us combat the YouTube algorithm overlords who are bringing us down. We are going to be coming back very soon with you next week, reviewing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Aside from like some interviews, this may be the biggest episode we have ever had because we're currently, if scheduling works out, planning on doing it live. We have not one, but two guests. We have Josh from Den of Nerds himself, bringing the Nerdvenger crew over to join us, as well as Paul from Heavy Spoilers. We're bringing both the YouTube guys over to join us. We're going to get a little bit of debates going, myself and Paul on behalf of the Crown, Canada and the UK, and then the American guys over there, Josh and Garrett going toe to toe.
Yeah,
so
I'm excited to be split up from you for the first time.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm ready to battle you, bro.
Take a wild guess who I'm rooting for.
Team USA. USA.
I'm gonna bring it home for you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
I have to now.
I know it's coming home.
So much riding on it now.
And so that is going to be an absolute blast. We're really looking forward to that. Make sure you head over to Apple Podcasts, write the review so that you can win Anthony Francisco, former Marvel Studios concept artist, his book. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today, my man. Where can the people find you and what do you got going on right now?
Well, you can find me over on the Twitters at Matt Rimke, ROEMB as in boy KE. Check out the Direct podcast. We break down everything you need to know about the universes you love. Very similar to this show. Apple, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts. I'm writing a bunch of stuff over on thedirect.com right now. If you are about to go see Multiverse of Madness, I have a full-blown multiverse breakdown over on thedirect.com. Everything you need to know about the multiverse in the MCU. And check out our Multiverse of Madness review coming out first thing in the morning Friday. So hop out the theater, go to sleep, wake up, and check out, see what me and my boy Liam have to think about the movie.
And the boys on the Direct podcast are a big inspiration for us and helped start us to do what we're doing. So it's awesome to see you guys continuing to just push amazing content out there and always inspiring us and others in the industry to to keep thriving and trying to do better and keep up with you guys.
Well, hey, we appreciate you guys, man. You guys also, push us to do better as well. You guys, but especially my boy Ruben in the back. We appreciate you guys so much.
Ruben's out here pushing you in the graphic design game. He's keeping you on your toes. He's got to make sure you're up in your game every week.
Yeah, no, he's crushing it all the time, every time, man. Ruben's the GOAT.
Yeah, we're beyond lucky to have him on our squad.
Yeah,
Matt, thank you so much for joining us again, bro. It's always a pleasure. And honestly, I feel like it's been too long since our last chat. So
I'll be back whenever y'all need me.
We haven't had Matt on back since the beginning. And so now that we're more established and doing well, it's so awesome to have him back on again. Because, hey, without him and Liam being guests early on for us, when we didn't have any of our own listeners, who knows if we'd be here today. So it's
True.
very, very appreciative. And I joke about the graphic design competition, because if you haven't seen Matt's stuff, Matt is an incredibly talented graphic artist himself. So make sure you check out his stuff at thedirect.com. Head over to agentsofandom.com for our stuff. That will do it for us today. Laters, Gators.
Peace.